All right, everybody. So we got Adam here. I have yet to put my camera on, but Adam, why don't you take it away now that people can hear you?
Okay, hopefully people can hear me. Give me a thumbs up, one, or just, yep, I can hear you. That'd be nice. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, well, I am just taking brief moments to do the new link sharing out. So if you'll give me 30 seconds, folks, I'll be right with you and back to your questions and extinguishing all the gaslighting. Provided it's not actually true. In some cases, it can be. So we're back. Appreciate all the people sharing on Twitter. That's the only way this thing will get out. Back with my YouTube family. And I've got Periscope to my left. I know my hair is getting a little shaggy, but as everybody says, it's hard to get a haircut. It's not considered essential. So here we are. Now, already halfway through my first White Claw of the evening, which is, I'm referring to medicinal treatment without actually having contracted anything except exhaustion and frying my circuits following the amazingly inept American media, which could only be outdone by the amazingly inept World Health Organization. So I take this sip in honor of neither of you, bumbling beast of abominations. Now, let's see here. I'm going to move my screen around to make things more palatable
All
for
right.
me to
Well,
look at.
I think that's as good as it's going to get today.
I see no problems other than I need to lift my head up a little bit. There we go. Nope. You fixed it right when I did it, so I'll put it back. Anyway, we're done finagling around with this whole damn thing. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use a bull. That's not going to work. Definitely not a good look these days. So we are in the middle of a pandemic. In case you didn't notice, everything is switched down to the level of 0. If you had an amplifier and a guitar plugged in, you would hear nothing. That's where we're at. And some people think that this is just a total colossal fail by the government, and that Trump was misled by the evil Dr. Fauci and the manipulative Dr. Birx and all of the members of the task force, and by a soul chart model out of the state of Washington, University of Washington, which of course sways wildly depending on the data that you put into it. So I've been going back and forth with a lot of people online, specifically, of course, on Twitter, that just assume naturally. Glenn, I don't know if you're surprised by this, but I'm surprised to learn that the greater percentage of people on Twitter are smarter than these doctors from the NIH, from the CDC, from the military medical forces, than President Trump himself. I am shocked that we have not recruited some of these people, these fantastic Twitter accounts that have all these things figured out. I'm not sure why the president isn't rifling through some of these smaller accounts and plucking these people out and putting them on the task force. And just, I think it's It's a terrible thing to waste. A frantic, gaslighting Twitter account is a terrible thing to waste in a national crisis. So honestly, let's believe that China has no cases whatsoever, while we get reports of their crematoriums just basically smoking up the skies, seen from space, screams heard from inside body bags as they're being burned alive. Look at Singapore. Let's look at the Korea cases that are coming back in South Korea. The second wave will come now with the Wuhan Providence the Wuhan province people fleeing now, so they don't get welded back into their communities. It's going to spread again all over. And China, good thing that we have limited travel from there. In this particular country, I think we need to embrace the fact that travel bans from outside this country are going to remain in place for longer than our CDC mitigation guidelines will be. So you can be fairly sure we're going to have a great relaxation for most of the country on the CDC guidelines come May 1st. And I believe that that will be based on something called data. And if you're not into logistics, if you're not into the monitoring of viruses, professionally speaking, in a scientific manner, if you're not into actuarial science and statistics, then you probably are confused, and that's okay. But try not to make an ass out of yourself on Twitter in the time being. It is data informed. All models are data informed. No model is going to assume the behavior of a human being. It is not what it's there is to extrapolate the data from other countries and plug it in population per 100,000 per 1,000, whatever you want to do on the metrics, and then it pumps out data and it shows you hospitalization, likely intubation, likely ventilation, and likely death. And as that number spikes wildly in some areas and not in others, the charts will change. The models will change. That's what they're there for. They're not meant to be static. They're not meant to be used for making a decision any period longer than 24 to 48 hours. So you can be assured that Trump did not order a 30-day extension to the CDC guidelines because he saw a University of Washington model that said 200,000 people could die. So this is an ignorant interpretation, probably learned by another type of viral problem that we have, which is across the internet. You probably read it on Twitter. You probably read it on Facebook. You might have heard it from whatever asshat is currently sitting in the InfoWars studio. It's frankly not true. And it's rather simple to look at what we're facing and saying to yourself, how could this situation be improved had we not done expansive and extensive mitigation? I beg of you. I'm like I'm. I I guess a lot of people in the medical field who have dealt with epidemics in the past or breakouts in the past, studied human behavior, studied the pathology that follows that human behavior, and decided that that Americans were not going to pay attention to 6 feet. They were not going to cover their coughs each and every time. They were not going to self isolate or shelter in place if they had any symptoms, and they were just taking what all models take into the fact. The fact is, it's been an enormous success as far as mitigation, and it's been expansive in a way that Europe doesn't even apply. And I'll explain. Europe is getting hit pretty hard, and we have to keep all the timing in perspective here. Europe was a little late. He said, putting it mildly, particularly in northern Italy, trying to shut everything down. So those cases are lagging by 2 weeks. So everything they did before mitigation is all their death spikes. And then once the mitigation was put into place, all they did was domicile infect. So once they put everybody in with each other, they infected the other members of the household, and it acted as uh, an additional layer of spread. So Italy did everything ass backwards, including allowing all those Chinese Wuhan province Chinese workers, garment workers, back in flights after the breakout down there, and put them in the northern garment industry in Milan. So Italy had fatal errors. UK attempted out of the gate to be an Italy, try to finagle this thing in a different way, and they're going to be seen up. Their numbers are going to rise significantly. Germany remains kind of anomalous, but if you look at France and Spain and Italy, you're going to see similar numbers of fatalities, the mortality rate, as you will eventually see here. So it just befuddles me because America is obviously the continent itself. The country is far larger than the combination of France, Spain, Italy, and Germany, or let's just say France. Yeah, France, Spain, Italy, and Germany. Okay, we have far more. We're spread out far more, fortunately, but I believe those countries add up to just about the same population that we have. If you add up all those European countries, and if you add up all of either 4 out of those 5 countries, you add up their current cases of confirmed deaths, they're going to add eventually up to what we'll have. So if they've got about 50,000 deaths now, you can be assured that we have a very solid chance of hitting 40,000 deaths by the end of or beginning middle of June, just by the way things are going. I mean, you can't look at New York and say that this is going to be an isolated incident. We're going to have an antibody test that nobody has in the field. So we're going to be able to move away from mitigation, and all of a sudden we're going to be able to figure out how far this is penetrated into our country, who's immune, who was asymptomatic, who had it, who has the antibodies to go back to work. We're not even close to that. I mean, we're still testing less than 1% of our total population. So we're doing well with the overall testing numbers, but I mean, really, you're not going to do anything like that. So let's just get one fact straight. The 30-day guidelines that were put into effect after the 15-day guidelines were done solely based on data here, but mostly obviously data that we were getting from around the globe. So the 30-day period was as much as they could convince Donald Trump to do. He is going to follow through with this 30 days. I mean, there's not going to be any interruption or change in that. This is the data set point where we're going to aggregate the data, use it 30 plus 15 for the 45 days roughly, and we're going to learn something. And frankly, if you think that New York and the Metro Jersey region are completely isolated, that you don't understand what I understand and my state understand. It is going to bleed into Philadelphia, into the Philadelphia metro areas, and could very well go right up the Northeast Turnpike extension, and or could come down from the Northeast extension from New York down through Monroe, down through Lackawanna, Luzerne, and get into Philadelphia that way. Sooner rather than later, Pennsylvania is, we know we're going to get hit with something. And so how would we not? I mean, I'm just very curious why people think that Detroit is getting it, Chicago's getting it, LA is going to be the next. I think you're going to see the next burgeoning level of cases come out of LA. So all these metropolis are going to have it, but everybody else is not going to have it. I mean, no model supports that. No data collection point would ever arrive to that, deduction. So, and nor I guess my biggest concern with people, the level of ignorance is if we have the number of cases that we do right now, and I don't want to go too far off. Um, yeah, statistically speaking, 40,000 cases out of 350 million would be optimistic, but we're only talking about the short end of this first seasonal effect. So most flu seasons are counted over two, like a baseball season. Okay, you got the 1920, 2019 and 20 are collected as a flu season. Okay, so that's when you say, okay, so what? We had 59,000 people die a couple years ago of the flu. Well, you're not wrong. Those people are still dying of the flu. Not as many this year because the B strain wasn't as bad as we thought. However, people are still dying of the flu. So we're keeping those numbers separate from the COVID numbers. So by the time we get done to this, got done with the seasonal impacts, and we're into the summer, and hopefully we can kind of bring this whole thing down. It would shock me if we were not at 30,000 deaths by June 1st. It doesn't mean I'm saying we need to keep everything closed. I think the data after 45 days, I think the president and the task force will look and see where peaks have gone down. They will look at vulnerable contingents of society and keep extensive guidelines on them. I believe you will see mask nearly almost societally mandated. I believe that social distancing is here to stay for the near future. However, I don't think that that's going to preclude concerts, sporting events, getting restaurant industry back up, all that kind of stuff. I can see being done through the whole month of June slowly. I think we'll still have frustrated restaurant owners who will need to be subsidized because they'll have to keep every other table as opposed to every table. Frustrated sports owners because they're going to have seating ticket sales based on the ability to separate people, and that is going to be the case until we get a substantial antibody test out there so that we can detect the penetrance into society. And once we do that, we could literally send out, much like the movie Contagion, you could send out plastic like wristbands to indicate that you've already been exposed and the local health department or state has confirmed that you have antibodies. That type of thing could be very valuable and very inexpensive way for counties and states to start getting back to business. What I don't see changing anytime soon, unfortunately, is for this what is becoming pretty close to social death sentences on older people. I think, unfortunately, people over 60 with comorbidity conditions, as deemed substantial enough by their doctors, will be submitted to the state government and to the feds. And I will believe the CDC guidelines will include people over 60 with comorbidity and over 70. Even if you're healthy, you're going to be kind of stuck in some form of isolation. Special hours will be provided, I believe, in some states for these people to go out and eat spaced out by 6 feet or more. They'll be have special hours at groceries, pharmacies, delivery systems will be up and running, subsidized by the government, county, local, and state, and the feds will be there as well. If you're over 70, I really, like my parents are, relatively healthy, mid 70s. I don't foresee the confidence of the American government simply because once you release all these people back into the fold, what are the chances that that you're not going to just have all these same asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic people all of a sudden in contact with older people, which could quickly then overrun a hospital in rural areas or even smaller third class cities, as we call them. So there's a lot of unknowns at this point, and I want to point out that you know what are we 1 week into this 30-day period? If you have any inclination in your head that Trump is just going to lift something before the end of this month, it's absolutely not going to happen because it would subject to the ruination of all the data. He's not going to do that. So if you're frustrated that, like right now, our governor, Glenn, has allowed the Fish and Boat Commission to issue fishing licenses, provided that you don't do what you see on the side of the streams up in your area when they open up trout season. You can't stand shoulder to shoulder pulling these fish out. You got to stay 6 feet away from each other, and you have to wear a mask. And if anything you're doing, the Fish and Boat Commission doesn't like, they will pull you off the scene or potentially issue you a fine or citation. Some of the governors are going to start slowly rolling this stuff out during the 30-day period, and the federal government has no control over that and no real problem with it because it's going to add an extra data point to the whole aggregate ball of wax. So I get people are frustrated, but yelling at Trump and yelling on Twitter about opening economy, I mean, it's simply a stupid statement. It's an ignorant statement because if we wanted to shut the economy, frankly, we would have shut the markets off or at least given them some time off. And we did not do that. And if you look at the markets, as I predicted, once the money started to come out of of the bill and put into play, the markets are fairly stabilized because they know that we have essentially almost 2 years worth of spending packages of money that we can deploy at any given time. I mean, if for the people who tell me, "Oh, my small business friend is going out of business because of this," well, that's because your small business friend can't fill out a loan application, or maybe never should have been in business in the first place. Because now Mnuchin's going back, and we're basically doubling almost. We got 300 billion available for small business, almost guaranteed loan forgiveness loans. We're going back. We're getting 250 billion. On top of that, we're talking almost 600 billion dollars for small business loans, grants in some cases. So don't tell me about your friend, because I've got friends in small business. They figured it out, closed down a week, talked to the bank, got the loan, went back to work with a limited workforce. The others are furloughed. They'll be brought back on once the emergency is over, and the loan will be forgiven. If you can't read a website, if you can't talk to your bank, you can't talk to the SBA, then maybe you shouldn't be in business. So I'm not saying that they're not going through anything. They are. So, but 600 billion floating around. Come on. I'm not talking about a 2-year period here, Glenn. So I don't want to hear about how much small business contributes to the GDP overall for a year. We're talking about $600 billion issued in essentially one fiscal quarter, if done correctly. I mean, how the hell can that tank an economy? How the hell can the economy tank when everybody's got 100% unemployment insurance coverage? How the hell can the economy tank when everybody's got healthcare coverage if it's related to COVID-19 at all? How the hell can the economy tank if all the major sectors like airlines and energy are going to be in some way given lifelines? I don't understand why people are talking like this. It's very fantastical in nature. That doesn't make any sense. I guess it's to get the clicks, as you and I have been fighting this battle of the click bait bullshit for a couple of years. I guess I really am disappointed in a lot of people that I know and respect that they're given in to this fear and this absolutely illogical conclusion that we will not be able to resurrect the economy within a period of 60 to 90 days. I just disagree wholeheartedly, completely disagree. No, if you lose your job, you're not losing it, even if the health insurance. Well, first of all, the loans cover the health insurance to keep the employees paid. So one of the loans that they give out to businesses to keep your employees on the payroll, even if they're not working, the government is paying their health insurance. So if you were a contractor and you don't really have somebody who has a health insurance plan for you, and you didn't have one because we ended the mandate, and you get COVID, you go to the hospital, we're not charging you for any of that. So tell me again how this is like devastating for any group of people. It's just not. They're all lies. Do I think divorce rates will rise? I think Glenn and I are going to make it through because I think our wives have pretty much hit rock bottom with us. They have no expectations. So just anecdotally speaking, I don't see any divorce rates rising. Conversely, I think you might see a lot of families getting together that didn't get together before after they're allowed to get together. I think it's like anything else. Society is experiencing something it hasn't experienced in at least 100 years. And before that, really ignoring the 57, 68 flu epidemics that broke out in America, realistically, we didn't even do what we're doing now in 1918. You've got to go back to like the 1660s, and you got to go back to the bubonic plague to talk about the type of social distancing that we're talking about. And even at that point, empty churches on Easter was unfathomable. So we're on the precipice of doing something that has probably never been done in modern human history. And I'm not saying post Dark Ages, post Middle Ages, post Renaissance. I just don't. I think we're doing something that is incredible. So if you're curious about why models are swinging wildly, it's because nobody had any idea that Americans or even some others in the world would comply with this type of mitigation effort. And Bill Moran is correct. We could have a second baby boom, Glenn. Another baby boom. Not from either one of us, but other people. Yeah, CG big. We're hearing all types of. It depends on where you're at. Depends on what kind of bank you're working with. It depends on whether or not they're already doing business with the SBA. It depends on whether or not they put additional requirements into the system of applications, which has been happening to the frustration of Mnuchin and others at Treasury. You're going to get your money, and you're going to get your money backdated to when it was requested. So if you're having to push off paying a couple bills, that money's still coming. So you're going to pay off your bills, whether it's this week or in 3 weeks. So it's really hard to complain about the government giving you free money. So you know how hard it is to get 600, well, first 350, then another 250. You know how hard it is to get $600 billion into directly into businesses. We're not a nationalist. We're not a socialist or nationalist country. We don't nationalize industries, banks, or anything else. So this is something, again, completely designed to service the need by Trump's administration on the fly. Yeah, that's going to take longer, though, Shireen. When you're dealing with a bank that it's a non-client, they're always going to be worried. You know, these banks are just. I really hope High Turbine is joking, not knowing who John Prine is. That's flat out depressing. John Prine is probably in the top 5, top 8 most influential American singer-songwriters and of our generation anyway. And he's been suffering for the last week and went on a ventilator a couple days ago. And then we heard his situation was improved, but he's a 2-time cancer survivor. A large portion of his larynx was removed from throat cancer 10 years ago, maybe. And he continued to try to tour and got his voice back a little bit. It sucks. Big fan of mine. And real quickly, before we move on here, I've seen him several times in concerts, mostly years ago. And there was a concert I saw him down in the Malvern Theater just outside of Philadelphia. And it was a great show. And it was pouring down rain, and there was a small collection of people outside waiting to see if he would go into his tour bus, and we were, just looking for an autograph, or something. And I had a CD liner, which sucks compared to the old days having like the album liner notes, but I had the CD liner. And we stood out there for about 10 minutes, and he was inside, and he was actually having dinner backstage. And somebody from his roadie staff went in and said, there's about 20 people out there standing in the pouring rain, no umbrellas, uh, waiting to see if they can get an autograph. And John Prine came out into the rain, shook everybody's hand, and then said, come on, the ink's going to run if we stand in the rain. And he brought us into the backstage area where he had a nice dinner that he interrupted literally mid-eating dinner. And John Prine signed something that'll be in my possession forever, an autograph for myself, my brother, our good friend Mike Petito, and some other soaking wet people that were just shocked that he was so cool. And his wife was back there, very nice, very gracious. And I've met some big musicians over the years, but this guy was just as humble as it comes. And it just sucks. He's written many songs that were covered by other people. But if you don't know John Prine, it would be a good night to maybe Google some of his songs or YouTube some of his videos. And personal favorite of mine has always been Storm Windows. Uh, if you listen to Storm Windows, you'll learn a lot about it. But he was famous more for some of his earlier stuff in the '70s, and rightly called depressing music. But do check out John Prine. We literally lost a national treasure to COVID-19 this evening. Um, that one will leave a mark. CG, big one. I mean, it's thanking both Glenn and I for taking our time, but you're taking your time to be with us. So right back at you. Perturbed Son wants to know, it appears the president may end up looking like a sage who saves thousands and thousands unless something goes wrong. I think, I listened to the interview with Sean Hannity, and certainly the preface to that interview was Dr. Oz and talking about Dr. Wallace, who is infamously, or I should not infamous, pretty much a famous and worldwide renowned Los Angeles area rheumatologist who deals with lupus and other conditions of inflammation, basically put out a letter saying any questions by the press about the downside or side effects of hydroxychloroquine is bullshit. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting interview, and we'll continue to get some data in, and they will continue to call it anecdotal. And what are we going to do? It's saving lives, and even if it's anecdotal, it's going to get an option for people to ask their doctor about. So I think the great investigation being done into whether or not people with all types of rheumatoid issues or lupus are not getting sick, I think that's a fascinating development, almost like World War Z, when Brad Pitt figures out that if you're ill, that you're not a host that the zombies want, and they go and move around you and they don't infect you. I think that would be an interesting thing to know, that this is an unintentionally prophylactic quality to hydroxychloroquine. My friend George from the left coast has said, just got on again. I got lost in a loop, dropped a few dollars in the website today, Glenn. Presume it arrived okay. Glenn's going to check that for you. He
Yeah, we
is
got
always.
donations when we weren't on from both George and just recently from Walter. So thank you, George and Walter.
Thank you. We presume not to be wasting your time or ours. Always thrilled to get positive feedback in one form or another. I know that sometimes I'm saying things that people don't want to hear. I know it goes against a lot of the Twitter conspiracies that are out there. So Yeah, Big Ralph saying, if one of these reporters was dying with this Wuhan flu, they'd be begging for any experimental drug. And frankly, I'm pretty sure Trump told um, the the FDA, listen, either you obviously approve this for off prescription, off label use, or else I'm going to mandate it and through executive order and issue it through right to try. So they really didn't have any chance. So Jeff over at the FDA had no choice but to just sign off on this thing. So in the end, I don't know how many. I think it might matter not just whether you take hydroxychloroquine, but when you take it. And you see, that's the kind of stuff that pisses off the Faucis of the world is they can't, or guys like your father would argue, how the hell am I going to know the effectiveness if I don't know what point the disease was and it's manifest in the body when the drug was administered? So that's what frustrates this quote unquote scientist. For everybody else, it's about supply, it's about need. And so you've got some doctors out there who are willing to, if you can get it in a pharmacy in your area, they're willing to basically say you got the sniffles, okay, go ahead and get some hydroxychloroquine. And in other cases, they're going to say, no way, that's just not a known treatment. So no. So depends on your doctor. And if you're in a good healthcare system, or network, and your doctor says no to your request for hydroxychloroquine, then you can always change your doctors. If you're commenting on Glenn's audio, that's because he had to switch up mics for me because there was a compatibility issue tonight. So he's taking one for the team on a lesser mic so I can use mine. So if you think it's a little tinny, it sounds good to me, but I read your question, Isaacs. Yeah. After all these years, you still don't know me? That is my lovely assistant. She doesn't want to be shown on camera. All right, who else is chatting up here? What are we missing? Could we make the press wear masks? Yeah, I think the White House is. Yeah, don't put it. Yes, Gingo just got a claw. There you go. We could do all that, but to answer Cindy Pittman's question again in greater detail about can we kick people out or choose who we want in the White House briefly, that's actually done under John Carl, that little, as they call cutie pie, John Carl from NBC. He's the head of the White House correspondence press corps. So they make the rotational decision of who's in and who's out on certain days. And you can try to throw a reporter out because you don't like them, but we've already tried that a couple times and it doesn't work. So unfortunately, we have to deal with it. Another important note is John Carl attempted to get Rion Chanel from One America News Network removed because she didn't have an assigned seat, and she got express permission from outgoing press secretary Stephanie Grisham to remain in the back of the room, provided she keeps 6 feet away from the other reporters. I know it's getting tedious. I know it's getting really nauseating to watch these things every day. But what you have to understand is the press is exposing the United States of America at large to the hostility and vitriol that he is receiving in a time of a pandemic from the media, the insipid questions, the vacuous nature of those questions. I think Americans are starting to appreciate that these are hostile people that contribute very little to the process. So don't think it's a complete waste of time to have Trump do this himself. Breeze wants to know if there's something in the Constitution that protects us from the government forcing us to put vaccines into our body. I'm sure there's case law into this, and I'm sure for religious reasons you can probably opt out of that in all cases. But if the greater majority of the country is vaccinated, then if you're not, you're the only one at risk. So we're not really concerned about people, who want to not get a verified or viable. And I believe it'll be fast tracked. And I believe that this current vaccine is going to be much exponentially quicker available, specifically to military frontline military medical workers, and online right away for healthcare workers who are willing to take it, because that's going to stave off any real problems going into next winter. And like I've explained before, they always said there's no cure or vaccine for the flu or the common cold. Well, the flu they've tried, and in some cases that's hit and miss with effectiveness. They've got a relatively stable genome here with this particular coronavirus. It shouldn't be a problem to isolate it and whack it and get it out. And it's just a matter of time and study. And fact is, nobody ever monetized it enough to make it worthwhile. That's the only reason we don't have a cure for these things. So now you've monetized it. The whole world needs it. You're going to be rich beyond your biotech wet dreams. So that is my opinion. My Trump-like instinct opinion tells me that frontline healthcare workers, frontline military personnel will be the guinea pigs of a very safe phase 2, 3 merge going into November. As a matter of fact, by November 1st, I predict that there will be one of these vaccines, whether it's the University of Pittsburgh model or the Johnson & Johnson, or one of the many others that are working on it. I think we're going to have one, and it's going to be effective, and that's going to save us from this, disastrous second wave that they're talking about.
I want to thank Jeff for his donation through the MAGA Coalition donation form. Thank you, Jeff.
And thank you, Silog, for the statement rather than a question. Defund the WHO. And you know what? We put a relatively modest amount, $100 million annually into the WHO, but guess what? That's by far the most in the world. So it's one of these UN collectives, and I think Fauci would probably cry into his whatever he drinks if we cut him off. But I think that we need to at least suspend, as the president said today, until Tedros over there, the head of the WHO, is removed. So essentially what the president's saying is, if this guy doesn't resign, we're not going to continue to pay the World Health Organization. I believe you're correct. Fauci is shorter than Bloomberg, yeah, for what it's worth. How do you feel about being Bill Gates chip so you can be identified as having taken a vaccine? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take any vaccine through any Bill Gates organization or administration or whatever charity work he does. Bill Gates likes to experiment in Africa, where they just have no choice but to take whatever he's doing. He's either the world's greatest humanitarian or he's Dr. Evil. I can't tell the difference, but the United States government remains the preeminent authority on any CDC approved, FDA approved vaccination. And I doubt that Bill Gates is required, because we have so much money that we're backing up these companies with that we don't need Bill Gates money. So Bill Gates is probably pouting about that.
Bill Gates is an ass clown.
Yeah,
I have a book
technically.
in my collection of things I've kept way back when. I think it was 1994. I was working at this company called Prodigy, and I met Bill Gates at a bar. His company, Microsoft, had rented out an entire nightclub in Las Vegas at Comdex when they still were doing Comdex, and I crashed the party with Paul. We weren't invited, but I
Hmm.
bullshitted my way in, and I was amazed that when we finally got to the bar, I was standing next to Bill Gates, and I thought I was totally busted. But anyway, he didn't care. And I asked him about this book that had just come out. Um, what the hell was the name of that book? The Road Ahead. The Road Ahead? It couldn't have been 94. It had to have been 95. Probably 95. The book was already out for 6 months or whatever. And in the book, he was stating unequivocally that the internet was a fad. It would never be around. It wouldn't last more than a year or two. It's a joke. And, the real technologies were whatever the fuck it was, Windows NT. Or maybe Bob. You remember Bob, the talking paperclip and all that shit that they
Yeah.
tried?
Yeah.
That was his
Yeah.
stupid wife. Everyone thinks Bill Gates is this really smart guy. He's not. He's a guy who banged his secretary, probably the first woman he ever had sex with. Is completely dominated. He got totally owned by the Clinton administration. He was removed from a position of authority of the company he spent his life building. The guy is a complete ass clown. And I have this book, and I went and got it out of storage. It's sitting on one of my tables here because at some point he's going to piss me off, and I'm going to read word for word
Hmm.
for our audience the brilliant Nostradamus level ass clown that is Bill Gates. And what's interesting, like all fuckers, is that after he completely owned himself with his stupid prediction that the internet wasn't going anywhere,
Yeah.
within 2 years he tried to get all of all those old copies were taken off the shelves, and a new version was put out with his attempt at trying to explain away the slight errors in his speech from the first edition. How he didn't really mean that the internet was going to go away because it was a joke. What he meant to say was, of course, it's going to stay around, but not in its current form, which is absolutely not what he was saying. And I have the original book. Guess what, Bill? You can't get rid of it. It's the first edition. It still has the stupid CD-ROM at the end of it, which nobody opened, including myself, because it was obviously garbage. And one day I'm going to start reading that shit because you are an ass clown, and I would never put a chip in my body unless there was money or some position at the end of that for me. Like
Yeah. It's
if you're a Navy SEAL, you might need something like that, but I'm not, never will be. I don't want anything in my body, and there we go. And fuck you, Bill Gates, you stupid ass.
I think, if you look at his historical behavior with this stuff, with this philanthropy stuff, whatever, he clearly knows that if he has this globalist dream, it's not going to start here in America. So he's got to go outside the scope of great wealth to find others who think that his wealth is insurmountable and they need it. And he's been doing that shit for 30 years. And the fact that he stuck his nose up at the internet is because the internet technology was proven to be an effective tool of technology years before he stumbled upon piecing together any type of computer. Yes, it is that old, and it's still effective based on the original construct. And so, maybe it's just some element of jealousy there, but I think that if Clinton wouldn't have stepped in when he did with some of that stuff, his wealth would have been even greater, and the destruction to whatever goes on in his head would be even greater. And it's also a cautionary tale for Zuckerberg and Bezos and these guys. They can only get so big, and someone's going to take a big old chunk out of your ass. That's just an American lesson that's been going on since the railroad business here in America. So suck it up, Buttercup. But yeah, I think most of the stuff Glenn and I are talking about are just our opinions on Bill Gates, and I don't think he's very relevant to this issue. He might want to put himself in a position of relevancy, and I think that the American media will attempt to introduce him to that in some elements, but it's a mostly a foreign foundational influence that he has, where they succumb to his ability to produce money. So, but Bill Gates hates what's going on right now in America because Trump has basically engineered this economic takeover, and the Democrats are going to be very confused about how to address if we, suppress the outbreak from getting into six figures. We are depositing money directly into people's accounts. We're bailing out any small business that got screwed by this out of no fault of their own. We're basically keeping the economy on ice, ready to go. Uh, by doing a lot of the things that the Democrats would do if they were in power, but doing it better. So how do they campaign on this? I mean, this is so for all the people who think that this is like the electoral doom of the president, it's not. We're still in the same shape we were before. And for all the people who send me all these models, electoral projection models that Trump is going to lose in Ohio and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida, and give me a break. I mean, you bitch about these models all the time in this viral or virus context. Don't come to me with the political context right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a large economic shutdown in April, and you want to come and complain to me that Biden might get 370 electoral votes. It's just not true. And I'm here to tell you tonight that the economy is not dying. It is not frozen. It is merely engaged in its own form of mitigation. It does what it can and allows what it can based on the fact that consumerism is still there. The streamlining, the technology advances that we're going to put forward after this will not take more than 90 days to create more wealth. And we're going to recover faster than the world. And China is going to be under our thumb to continue to buy our agricultural products at the rate that they agreed to in phase one, or there'll be punishment. Trump has informed both Putin and Ben Salmon that if Saudis and Russians can't agree on an oil cut in production, he's going to basically tariff any barrel that comes over to America, and he's going to switch over and only do American uh, um, oil in refineries, which will cut the market back an additional 30%. So Trump just has so many tools. I think he's a political Batman at this point, just because he's president of the United States, just because we had the economy we had going into this, just because we had the sleepy, ignorant Democrats authorize an essential takeover of the entire economy by the Treasury and the Fed, led by the executive, which is the president. I think it's just a weird scenario that people would think that this is gloom or doom. Yeah, I know food banks are going to line up in certain areas because it's tough to get access to takeout in some places and fast food in others, and it's not enough for the family. I know that, but it's very temporary stuff. This isn't Great Depression era bullshit. We don't have any of the uh, climatology bullshit that was going on with the Dust Bowl. We don't have people just fleeing to certain sections of the country and then living in these Hoovervilles and spreading disease and dysentery and typhus and typhoid and whatever. I think it's ridiculous to try to compare it to any of that. Everybody's kind of hunkered down, and it's almost like anything else. If you get a reptile, if you're down in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. You get the iguanas and stuff like that. You get the temperature down low enough, they start falling out of the trees, hitting the pavement in the parking lot, and then as the weather warms, they slowly wake back up and they get moving again. And then that's exactly what's going on with the economy. Greg Gutfeld has come up with a pretty good description of it. As if you're not a NASCAR fan, follow me here. But anytime you have a wreck in a NASCAR race, what they do is they put up a yellow flag before you go to the red flag where you don't move anymore. And that's so that you don't pass anybody in a condition of danger. And that's how we want society to function at this point. We want everybody to stay where they were when everybody hit stop, when the music stopped. If it's a game of musical chairs, we don't want the people who are doing well, trying to do well, succeed, playing by the rules, to not have a chair. If somebody's not going to have a chair, Glenn, at the end of this, it's going to be the people that were dealing drugs that can't get them because we're cutting off their routes in both the Caribbean and the Pacific. And or maybe they were just a total loser that were doing something illicit and under the table, and they can't get money through the government, so they don't know how to live. And frankly, those people deserve to be outed, and then hopefully they'll seek help or get a job or whatever. The point is, the people that are doing right and working right and had a job in an industry that can come back are not going to be left without a share. Because I can tell you, Glenn, and Tim's on here, but I can tell you, as a junior economist, simply holding a piece of paper from college doesn't make you an economist. But I can tell you that this level of liquidity has never presented itself. And I'm talking, I can prorate this thing out any decade you want. This has never been done before. It is so hard to get it where it's got to go. But once it does, it's it's like two spending packages for an entire fiscal year infused in one 90-day window. It's an amazing, the capabilities that we could do. We are limited not by government. We are limited not by our wealth. We are limited in recovery from one thing and one thing only, and that is the fact that this pandemic is still it still consists of so many unknowns. That's it. And if you stay at home, if you do what the government says for 30 more, well, whatever, 45 total days, but 3 more weeks, you will give us the data that we need to make the decisions. And I promise you this. Thank you, Silog. I can promise you this. At the end of April, Glenn, the answer from the White House, Trump himself, will not be, and I guarantee this, I will delete my Twitter account and I will delete my Periscope and YouTube accounts if Trump comes out at the end of this 30-day period and says we're extending this 30 more days. I can tell you there's going to be a data-related, geographic-specific relaxation of guidelines. Now, whether or not the governors and mayors abide by that, I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that this cloud of federal authority, which is basically just that, a cloud, doesn't mean anything constitutionally. But I know that we will have enough data. Trump will turn around to Dr. Birx and say, listen, you've got the data you wanted. I gave you the 30 days, 45 in total. You tell me where we've got risk, and we'll take mitigation issues there. And you tell me where we can just open up. That's what's going to start to happen May 1st. June 1st, will be another 30 days, limited based on where in the country you are, how old you are, what medical conditions you have. There'll be a limited 30-day extension, in my opinion, which will impact probably less than 25% of the country. And after June 1st, I believe that's when you'll see baseball season start. Might space people out. Concerts are back up and running. Might space people out a little bit. Health messages, PSAs are going to be all over every event. The federal government's going to spend a lot of money trying to get you to, be aware that you might have a underlying condition. You might want to skip that concert. You might want to skip that ball game. But relatively otherwise, healthy people will be able to go, even if they don't have the successful antibody test proving they've already had it. So I think by the end of June, we will have a very, very sophisticated and widespread antibody test. Drop a pin into your blood, and get it screened as fast as you would anything else like strep throat. We'll have a lot more stuff out there. Appreciate that, Sherry. It's just my insight, but like Trump says, I feel good. I feel a certain way about it, and I'm going to tell you. You know,
And we just got a donation from Kathy B, our longtime supporter. I want to thank her for her donation through the MAGA Coalition donation form at magacoalition.com/donate. The now working MAGA Coalition donation form.
without question, there's no efficacy anymore. You can drop that. By the way, I think you've proven yourself beyond all measure that you've fixed that solution.
Well, I'm noticing we're getting a lot of donations now through the form. And
Well, I think it's because we're actually being interesting. That's all.
yeah, well, it's either that or people have figured out that YouTube is enriching itself with its usurious 35% or whatever it is off the
Yeah,
top
about
vig.
about 30. Yeah.
So if you give us $10, we only get 7 because of
Yeah,
those guys,
that is
because
true.
of the lib filth at YouTube. But if you send it through the form, we get 100%. Well, not 100. We get like 96%, 96.5%.
90, yeah, closer to 97. But there are a lot of people that are YouTubers, and that's the way they got their account hooked up. And
I'm not going to argue with it. I'm just
yeah, I'm not
saying that
arguing with that
I think
either.
the
And
number
a lot
of
of
the
times,
yeah.
a lot of times it helps me pick up questions because, honest to God, I love it when we have 270, 80 people in here. I love it. A lot of conversations go on internally, and I can't catch up with real questions. So even a 199, 299 might seem like a waste of money to some people, but I can at least see the highlighted question, and it does mean something to me. Um, that they care enough to send a little bit of money to ask me a question. I feel like maybe there's some validity to what it is we're doing. Through PayPal, that's what
Yeah.
Glenn's talking about. It's a PayPal
Well, if
form
you
if you go to our
go
website.
okay, well actually if you go to our okay, so at the form magacoalition.com/donate, you can use our form, which actually is using PayPal, but you don't need a PayPal account to use it. Or you can, there's a link there for people who don't want to use the form and want to use straight up PayPal. You can just go to paypal.me/MAGA coalition. And that link is also on the donation page. So if you want to do direct donation through PayPal, we are paypal.me/MAGA coalition. And yes, exactly. I'm not saying that if you don't have $50, don't bother. I mean, we can make our monthly nut with all the hosting and other things with just if you got $1 or two,
Well,
that'd be
listen,
much
the other
appreciated.
thing that we should be, we've always been open with people that we transitioned out, thank God, from the whole political action crap. So there's no reporting, there's none of that crap, spreadsheet, FEC stuff, and all that other stuff. But
And we don't have to pay an
we are,
accountant and a lawyer
yeah,
every
we are a
month.
business. And well, I shouldn't say a business, but we are a business. But that's not how I want to describe myself because I don't have sponsors that tell me what to say. I don't have any opinion on it, whatever you might think of what I'm saying for clickbait type of stuff. That's not why I'm here. It's not why Glenn. When we had this talk, we agreed that we were not going to. Now, have we had theoretical talks? Yeah, we joked for the last 6 months how these people are making money. We see it. We're not dumb. We know how to manipulate people by watching others that manipulate people. We don't do that. And we could be standing in cold water at the end of the day on this, but we figured it's a worthy venture to, in an election year, you don't bail out. You just don't. I mean, it might be better for us to save a lot of time or put me back into something else that I could be doing. And we're not taking anything out of this until we see how willing people are to put into it. And if it becomes something that is sustainable, then I think we can get through and do this to the fall. So we do rely on you, and then you turn on that risk of, oh, they're grifters or grifters. No, I'm going to turn that on its head and say that what I do through the course of my day is pretty intensive as far as information is concerned. If I don't have an answer to your question, I would prefer to find the answer to the best of my ability and answer it. But the most common refrain that I hear is, "Are you just spitballing? Are you pulling this out of your ass?" Some of this. No, it's because I literally study all the charts. I'm studying all the things other people are saying. I'm watching every press conference. I'm watching the news coverage all over the world. It's just so much easier for me to facilitate this process through Glenn's technology and his witty, almost Ed McMahon sidekick ability that he has. Drum roll. We have something that we think is more valuable than what some of these other people are doing. I mean, honestly, I hope that doesn't sound like I'm being egomaniacal here, because it's not. Would I be doing the same thing, following the news at the same rate I do? Well, maybe, but I'd be at an Amazon warehouse right now, probably trying not to get sick, just to make sure that I can provide the tuition that we're still paying, by the way, even though that our kids are not at school. We're still paying the hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month, even though I'm basically homeschooling, but my wife does all the work. But anyway, I don't want to get too far afield in this stuff, but I want everybody to understand that we do actually have like a business model type of thing, but it is in a stage where it is just kind of like in a really honed in nuclear phase where it can grow or it can shrink and die. And that's based on our ability to be right. And it's a base more, I think, on our ability to detect who's wrong. That's my mission in life, is like be able to tell you who is wrong. And then sometimes we will painstakingly go back and we'll illustrate who was wrong. And that's awkward for some people. And we understand that. But if we don't do it, then they're never held accountable. I have never seen Ted throw out that kind of money. That's a lot of money for a cheese eater up there in that region of the country. That is the biggest I think he's ever gone in. Thank you, Ted. My eyes watered a little bit when I saw that. He must have had one too many White Claws himself. Cheryl, thank you. We are, in some cases, too honest. But let's get off ourselves and go back into what we're here for, which is a mixture of correcting gaslighters, commentary, and trying to dispel fiction where we can see the facts. And there's one more thing I would like to get to before we go far afield with questions, is that data versus model argument is the dumbest argument we can be having. And so don't get yourself trapped into what I've had suffered through over the last 2 days. Data's informed models. I mean, this is not I know how to do it in a political sense. I've done it before in an emergency response as a state executive appointee. But for the most part, you have to understand that data informs the models. The models are going to assume a certain level of non-compliance with whatever the population is has to do. And then as you inform the model with data, then you start to get truer and truer numbers. So please stop telling me that the models were wrong. That's like saying that, something 10 days ago was static and it was meant to be a monument to truth, which is, of course, no model is. It's all data informed. So of course it's going to go a certain way. And if you stop looking at Europe as individual countries and start looking at France, Spain, Italy, and Germany together as a collective, you'll see that their population in toto lines up with ours. And if you start to see the rate of infections confirmed, they start to line up with ours. And right now, their death rate is ahead of ours collectively. So you can assume, using, statistic analysis or Occam's razor, its simplest form, that we are going to have by the end of this general period. I'm going to just guess mid-June. We're going to have the residual impacts of about 40 to 45,000 deaths. And I think that that is horrific over a 3.5 month period. I think it's a failure of the Chinese government to alert the world. And, you don't have to watch Sean Hannity to know that the studies have said 95% of the cases would not be happening had they done their job. And President Trump is correct. Tedros and the World Health Organization were on the ground in January. They saw what was going on. They knew there was person-to-person transmission while the government was denying it in China. And they were allowing a mass exodus of people from the Wuhan affected areas after the Lunar New Year. And it just basically pulverized Europe, which didn't know what the hell it was in for. And Europe is built now in a new age open border period. So if Trump had not made these decisions, cutting out these China flights incoming on January 31st, should he have done it on January 20th? Yes. We had no informed opinion then. Do you want me to show you video of Dr. Fauci saying on January 20th that there's nothing to worry about? It's relatively low risk. I mean, the press is going after the president for saying the same things that Dr. Fauci said. So it's really aggravating to me to watch all these people fall into this trap that now, in retrospect, we're going to like blame Fauci for something. We're going to blame Dr. Birx. We're going to blame the University of Washington informed modeling. It made no difference. We saw the data from Europe. We knew what was happening. We knew Italy was late on mitigation. We knew that Spain was late on mitigation. And all we had to do was compute what would happen to us if our metropolitan areas got hit like that. And we saw 7-figure deaths. So Trump shut it down as much as he could. The rest was up to the governors, not Trump. Markets stayed open. If you had a mutual fund that you needed to withdraw money from, the markets were still open. You were not shut out from your ability to trade and involve yourself in this market economy. Everything else you want to complain about, restaurants, small business, whatever, that's all done at the state and local level. So don't give me any of the horse shit. Well, they wouldn't have done it without the CDC guidelines. Well, they would have saw a CNN news report about the deaths in Italy and Spain and eventually France, and they would have shut it all down anyway. So please, it's about time the president gets a little bit of credit here. Did the CDC fail? Yes. The CDC failed to keep our testing systems up and running with the best and latest technology so that if we did even have a small epidemic, that we could test and that we could strategize in a way that would give us something comprehensive to do. And that was all effed. That was effed because we had no PPE left on the shelves, barely any ventilators left on the shelves. They Silog defund the CDC. Yeah, I would say yeah, because what were they doing? They were studying syphilitic monkeys. They were studying all kinds of fat Polish guys that live in Milwaukee. Honestly, there's a lot to learn about this thing. A lot to learn about it. I think we are learning so much on this that we are going to be the new world leader. There is no need for a WHO anymore. What we're doing right now by involving our military so heavily in this process is we are basically going to have a task force inside the military that is going to be watching the world, and we won't have to wait until it lands in an airport in New York. We're going to be on top of the second wave because we'll watch where it's happening. The military will be the one to do it. And I think that that's only allowable or financeable by the moves that Trump has made, fiscally empowering the military beyond all imagination. Thank God. Yeah, maybe even the NIH. Maybe we need to look into it. Look into see, what kind of experiences, experiments rather, that Fauci's been heading up in his spare time. But I can tell you one thing, Glenn. You've been telling stories about Fauci and his quote unquote activism that you recall from your days of your father still being alive. Didn't that come out today in a big, I don't know if you saw the press conference, but Fauci basically stood up and attempted to couple the African American morbidity rates coupled with this COVID-19, and then further marry that to the AIDS epidemic. And he essentially gave a sociological lecture to the American public about how we need to address these societal issues head on, or we're not doing our job.
He's a
And
bad
I'm
guy.
like, that's
Tony
crazy.
Tony Fauci is one of the devils in my mind from that AIDS period. He's a gaslighter. He lied to the American public. He tried to convince everyone the wave of heterosexual AIDS was going to kill us all in an attempt to try to move the public's consciousness of AIDS from drug addicts and homosexuals get it. He created a maelstrom of lies. He beat that drum for 2 or 3 years to no effect. The public wasn't buying it. I do not like him. I do not trust him. And it's very unfortunate that he's still around at this time. It must be another headache that Trump has to deal with every day. But he's doing it.
I I could get everything you were saying before just by reading into the situation, but until he actually articulated that today, which was like he actually extolled the activism done by the AIDS, which we've talked about before. But he says that the eventual progress made in the fight against HIV was solely because of the fact that the gay community responded in a very responsible way and changed the entire country's attitude towards their community. What 35 fucking year period is he talking about here? Because that is blatantly and patently and absurdly false information. The
Well,
risky behavior.
I think honestly, when this is all said and done, um, I can't take half of what's going on seriously regarding this coronavirus, nor will I. I've been down this road way too many times with the same players who are liars and gaslighters, fucking scum. And I keep my mouth shut, but you know what? You brought it up. So, you tickled the dragon, so here it comes. Anything that Fauci's involved with, you can be sure there's lying involved. Politicization of science, that's his forte. He hasn't been in a fucking laboratory in 40 years. All he does is bullshit. That's his job. And fortunately, we haven't needed him for a long time. But hey, he's hanging in there. And now we've got this great opportunity to bring him out of mothballs and let him do what he does best, which is talk a lot of horseshit and try to cater to his favorite little splinter groups of Americans. And I do not forget, Anthony Fauci, what you did in the 80s, being that I was young, sexually active, very sexually active, and very young. And you were trying to gaslight everyone that every heterosexual was now uh, a candidate to get AIDS when we were not. There's a great book called The Myth of Heterosexual AIDS that came out a couple years after their campaign failed, which detailed the mechanics of the lies, why they were lying, who was benefiting from the lies. And I think I've said enough of it. I've said enough. I'm going to go back to sleep. Wake me up when it's over. But I'm telling you, Adam, Fauci is only beginning. He can't help himself. He did it for 10 or 15 years, him and Gallo, stepping on anyone who did any research they didn't like, getting them kicked out of the academy, having them thrown out of their laboratories, defunded, having all their grants pulled. These are bad people. and I will not take them seriously. You can. It's your. This is your show,
But
but
I can't. I mean,
I
basically
hate him.
today. I mean, I've always
I
said I don't
fucking
really give a
hate.
shit.
I hate them. I hate him and Gallo. I haven't liked these guys for a long time. I seeing that little rodent sitting next to the president makes me sick to my stomach, and unfortunately, most of our audience knew what he was the entire time we've been talking here.
Yeah, but
People
I
are
think they
not dumb.
overestimate his ability in this administration, and I think that it was public media shaming that worked on Reagan. It took a while, it took a couple of years, but Fauci was involved in that. He knows how to do this stuff. So now, what did he do today? I mean, I've left him alone largely because he's a single voice in the room. If you read the account, you'll see that not only is Peter Navarro the first one to alert the White House through memorandum in January, but way before Fauci was talking about anything about this being transmittable, human to human. Peter Navarro was the first one to be trying to warn the White House about this potential disaster. And last week, Peter Navarro was the one who slammed 20 folders worth of scientific data studies done around the globe on the uh, efficacy, the matter of fact, the miraculous upturn in recoveries due to hydroxychloroquine. And Fauci decided to shoot his mouth off. Now, if you've ever seen Peter Navarro, you know that this guy's like a Marine out of a freaking trench. You don't do that shit. And Fauci decided to just say one word, and Navarro flipped out on him
Yeah.
and
I mean,
said,
a guy at
if you're
his
going to block the
age,
president from saying anything about hydroxychloroquine,
it's
I'm going to go
pathetic. It's
public.
absolutely pathetic. I mean, at his age, what is he doing? What is he doing? Someone in his night in the 80s. He's in his 80s. What's he doing?
Well, let me ask you this. You know the devastation that it does, the Arthur Ashe issue, how that was like it was like a boulder he couldn't move when he was on his crusade, because there was not supposed to be a risk to blood transfusion for any heterosexual to
No,
receive
no, no.
any
Listen.
disease.
I'm telling you, I was very sexually active going to nightclubs during this time you're talking about. And when Ryan White, that young kid who
Yeah,
got some kind of
who, by the way, was not murdered at all the way they
no,
said he
no,
was.
no.
But
Ryan
anyway.
White was a kid who got a blood transfusion and died. He got AIDS and died from a blood
Oh, I thought that was the
transfusion.
one that was
No,
strapped
you're
to a
talking.
fence in
That's
Wyoming.
something else. So the first,
Okay.
then Arthur Ashe. There were a couple others. He wasn't the only one, but I remember at the time people were outraged and were calling for the homosexual community to be like turned into leper colonies. That was the mood of the country at the time. And here's a little fun fact, guys. If we ever do really get a true pandemic of something that's going to kill millions of Americans, be aware that that is the human reaction, not this horse crap we're seeing now. We're like, oh, yeah, come, Mr. UPS man, come inside. Would you like some? No, there won't be any of that. It'll be people with guns and knives. Stay away. Don't come to my door. That's
Yeah.
how it felt in 1985,
Yeah,
1986.
Ryan White, it just occurred to me. Ryan White was this, his
12-year
mother
old
was the
kid.
big,
Yeah,
and Elton John got involved.
right.
And,
Did he?
and this to me, to this day, we've discussed this before, but the fact that Elton
Elton
John,
John.
how the hell he did not, maybe he does have it and they G-packed his ass or whatever that cocktail was, not G-pack, but uh, I can't believe he didn't contract it. But yeah, he was the biggest proponent media-wise. Listen, I'm not trashing the homosexual community here. That's not the fucking point. And I know you know what I'm talking about, but it's listen. What I say to people, don't worry about Fauci. I'm just saying he's one voice in the room. I mean, he's honest to God not doing anything. If you get shouted down by Peter Navarro and Jared Kushner has to step in and just say, leave the old guy alone. We're going to push hydroxychloroquine. Fauci's a defeated animal. He's just lucky to be there. He's just winking at John Carl in the press briefings, but He's not the head of the task force. Dr. Birx is the head of the task force. And Dr.
That's
Birx
what it
spent
was.
29 years in the military doing this stuff.
He,
She knows how to take chain of command issues seriously. Fauci does not. He is a gunslinger. He is a media gunslinger. He's got a little bit of, that flamboyant. You know what? He's like a really old, short Michael Avenatti when it comes to some of this shit.
yeah.
My point with Dr. Fauci was never about saying we need to put him at the forefront of these decisions. My point on it was like, let's not elevate him past the point of what he really is. And the reason why he's even there is because if we remove him, we're going to cause a ruckus in the
Yeah, but
media.
my point, Adam, was that this motherfucker should have been gone 10 years ago. It's just the bad luck of the draw. I mean, Trump is sitting at the card table and he got dealt a certain hand.
Tells me two things. One,
Yeah.
he hates his wife and doesn't want to fucking retire. Or two, he was waiting for this
He
so he could have
was.
one more moment.
No, he was. I saw an interview a year or two ago where him and Bill Gates, maybe it was dueling interviews, edited together. They weren't there at the same time, but they're both heavily invested in pandemics because it's kind of like if you're the guy for the last 5 years going, there's going to be a pandemic and you're going to be sorry you didn't listen to me. And then there's a pandemic. And then guess what? I told you so time. But what is he still doing in his position? I don't know. And we've seen Trump is how shall we say less than proactive in replacing people. When he got into
Yeah.
the presidency, I would hope that at the beginning of his second term, he takes out the fucking axe for once and chops out all of these Democrat footsie players once and for all.
Tell you, he did a nice whack on the IGs, right? I mean, throwing 7 in at one
I
time.
enjoyed that.
Death by 1,000 cuts is no way to go in politics, right?
It's no way to go
So
anywhere,
don't do
whether
it
it's
one
in
at a time.
politics or anywhere. It's terrible.
Throw them in at one time. And as far as Dr. Birx is concerned, one, she's a Carlisle born and raised, so I'm already going to have an affinity towards that. Hershey Med, Penn State grad through med school, and 29 years in the military. Listen, find me one virologist, epidemiologist, or anybody in that field who doesn't have a photo with fucking Bill Gates somewhere. I'm so fucking sick of this shit.
Well, because he's got the money.
I can find you a picture with Donald Trump.
My wife was
and
freaking
Bill
out
Gates.
about Bill Gates today, and I had to calm her down. I said, look, the guy has a ton of money. He throws it around. People kiss his ass. But don't read too much into it. He's just some sad old man who went up against, I fought the law and the law won. Well, the law was the United States government. He went up against it and they crushed him. And he's been a broken man ever since. I don't care if he's got billions of dollars. I don't care if he can dangle money in front of academics and they literally will lick his bottom all day for some money. It doesn't really mean he knows what he's talking about. It just means
Can somebody in here
cash.
Google it while Glenn and I are talking? Tell me what Bill Gates' current net worth is.
Oh, it's billions, man.
Yeah, I know. If somebody could just do it, I don't feel like doing it because I have both my devices fired up.
By the way, Ryan White died of he was a hemophiliac who got AIDS-infected blood transfusion. Okay, I'd forgotten why. I thought it was some sort of I'm not gonna even. It doesn't matter. So Bill Gates, net worth, right? Let's see what he managed to hold on to all these years. $99.3 billion. So you're going to tell me he could be a raving lunatic, but with $99.3 billion, anyone and everyone will line up to kiss the ring finger and say he's the greatest guy ever.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Who's richer right now and more powerful than Bill Gates? Who has more money at his disposal? 1,000 times more money than that at his disposal. Does anybody know?
Let me think about this. Bezos, maybe?
Who's essentially the richest when it comes to expenditure authorization power?
Well, that would be, of course, Donald Trump, because...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me about a fucking $100 billion. Who gives a motherfuck? And that's not all liquefiable. That shit's probably fucking locked up and all kinds of bullshit. Donald Trump has been authorized by no less than Nancy Pelosi,
Yeah, I mean, he's
and Miss
what was it,
McConnell.
$6 trillion? So
We are up to 6
there
trillion.
is no one on the
6
planet.
trillion.
Right.
We don't give a shit what Bill Gates says. We don't give a shit what Tedros says at the World Health Organization. We don't fucking care what the UN says. Stop worrying about it. We just empowered the most financially fucking viciously powerful president in the history of the United States of America. Does anybody understand that? Does anybody understand what $6 trillion of liquidity even looks like? You don't even get it. You can't even imagine it. It could prop up the entire fucking world for a year. We are playing God from the White House until this emergency is over. And then we'll declare it over. And good luck ever getting those powers back if we have at least one branch of Congress. Okay? Do you understand what we did? Do you understand the fucking pavement job we did over the Democrats in the House?
Yeah.
If you look
It's a
real
beautiful thing.
close under the fucking blacktop, you might see one of Nancy Pelosi's fucking red painted fucking nails. We railroaded them, road topped them. We own the game. Treasury is run by the president through Mnuchin. Mnuchin is literally telling the Fed chair how the money is going to be fucking distributed. We're trading the markets. How the fuck do you take 10 million unemployed or the prospect of 10 million unemployed and level out the goddamn markets? You do it because you are the fucking market. Don't people get this?
No, they don't. But
They
anyway,
sit around complaining that they can't get their fucking small business loan fast enough. Oh, I'm sorry. Can't the federal fucking government put free money into your fucking pocket soon enough? Is that a problem?
what's amazing
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
they're
You have to fill out
complaining.
another form to get your fucking
It,
$1,200 check
it usually
free from the
takes
fucking government.
it usually takes the government, like, forget the government. If you go in for a loan at a bank, unless you got a shitload of collateral in that banking system, you're talking 2 to 6 month turnaround time. And they're talking about what? A six
Dude,
week
you know the kind of
six week
securitized you know the
turnaround?
kind of securitized assets they would demand out of you. If you
Well, that's
walked
what
into
I
Chase
mean. Look,
Manhattan tomorrow.
right. If I walk into Chase Manhattan and I've got $1 million in Chase Manhattan and I ask for a $10,000 loan, it'll be instantaneous.
Yeah.
But how many people have that? Almost no one. So if you're looking for some credit line, usually it's going to take somewhere between 4 and, well, if there are problems, it could be as much as 24 weeks. And people are belly aching. Oh, it's going to take 5 weeks till I get my money. And yeah, well, this is where we're already in miracle territory. By the way, Adam, I want to thank the following people for using the fantastic MAGA Coalition donation form. Mary, thank you. A Breeze Lover, thank you. So that one's not. Damn, everything was working so great. So Breeze Lover and Scott, thank you, Scott, and James. I've got everyone. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You were saying, Adam. I'm sorry about that. Gotta thank
Well, they say Robo is saying for a lot of people it's an issue right now. I get it. It's a delayed issue though. But it's back. It's prorated back to when you put in for it. You're gonna get your money. The creditors understand what's going on. Your landlord's not going to evict you. Your fucking bank's not going to repossess your car. As long as it takes to get the money, you're going to pay it back or pay what you owe. You're not even going to have to pay it back in some cases. Chances are, if you're having trouble with your SBA process and your bank loan, one, your bank's stupid, or two, you're stupid. And it's a very simple form in most cases. And if you fuck it up, you go to the back of the line. And then that's just Darwinism of banking. Get the information, have it at the ready, payroll data, all the other stuff you have to have, your lease or whatever. In some cases, for the PPP, you can only use 25% for non-payroll, whatever. You have to read things, know things. I'm sorry if it's going to take you a little bit of time to understand how to get free money from the government. You want sympathy from me? That's absolutely fucking shaved balls insane. Clean shaven balls insane for you to complain about a simple form. If you don't like the way the bank you're working with is doing, go to the SBA and go to another bank. There are banks that are not that just think this is too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
And like Steve Steve said, Mnuchin said, if what guaranteed 5 points per loan are you ever going to make again, banks? The answer is never, never. This is
This
not
is their
this
biggest chance ever,
dwarfs.
you know.
Yeah, this dwarfs 2008, man. 2008 was a total different. That was a shipload, barges of money poured into about 10 banks. What you've got now is the Fed being governed by the Treasury Department, which is governed by the president. You're gonna get your money. All we're asking for is that you don't bitch too loud while you wait for it, and that when you get it, you spend it on what you owe instead of like online casinos or cigarettes or whatever the fuck else you might do. And then, you know what? We ask you one more thing. We ask you to vote for this fucking president who is saving everybody's ass. Jesus.
Well, all I know is for 30 years, people on the right have been complaining loudly that the Democrats get into power and use the power of the purse to bribe voters to vote for them. And, what's the remedy for that? What's the remedy? Well, we're seeing the remedy, and our side is, instead of being happy to see it, that we're finally playing the game and winning, I hear nothing but criticism.
Yeah, it's you know what the biggest reason is, and I talked about this, touched upon it a little bit. When we had Tim on that night, and when I talked before that, is it's really unseemly to talk about how you just deconstructed the entire process of the American economy and screwed over the Democrats so bad that they got caught in a maelstrom of just bad news and couldn't do anything about it without getting killed in the press. We took advantage of it. You want to talk about Rahm Emanuel or Saul Alinsky about crisis spending and all this other bullshit. We did the mother load of it all.
Yes, we did.
We fucking
I
we
think,
fucking
though, that
deputized ourselves.
I don't think you realize, Adam, though, that the average right of center voter has been so traumatized in the last 20 or 30 years by Republican, just a combination of malfeasance
Giving up a lot, yeah.
and just incompetence, or maybe just being asleep at the wheel, that I think your political friends are saying don't gloat about this, but I think that that is more Republican stupidity. It's why Republicans lose, and why I really, at the end of the day, doubt I'll still be a Republican when Trump leaves, but we'll see. I think you need to explain to our voters what exactly is happening. That this is because everyone is being told it's a disaster. It's the end of everything. It's 1984. All of our freedoms are gone. They've spent us into a permanent depression. We've lost again. The Democrats got their $1 million for the Kennedy Center, and that's what we're focused on—a fucking $1 million at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, now
Six
we're worried about them laying off a couple people. Do you
Who
realize?
cares? I hate the Kennedy Center. I have no desire to go to the Kennedy Center. I've been there a few times. It was literally boring. If you have sleep apnea or sleep deprivation, you can't get sleep, go to the Kennedy Center. But not now, because the libs took the money and ran and fired all the other assholes. But look, Adam, you got to go for it. You got to tell people exactly how we fuck these people, how we're going to use the power of the purse. I don't want to use the word bribe because that would be wrong, but we're just going to say that everyone loves Daddy Warbucks in the comics, right? Nobody hates Daddy
You got
Warbucks.
that right.
right? So try to explain from a political perspective why these are the greatest days politically for the
Well,
Trump supporter.
why do you think that maybe 10% of the money's out the door, and the Democrats are saying we need a round four,
Because
right?
they
Phase
want
four.
their money. They didn't get the money.
Exactly. They got fucking railroaded, man. I've never seen anything like it before. I've been involved in state budgets for fucking 13 years or more. I have never seen a clock get cleaned
Yeah,
like that
so effectively.
when you're in a majority of a chamber. It was stunning. And the one thing you pulled out, the one thing you pulled out was
Some
like,
measly amount of money.
less than 2 billion worth of museum and a
So
fucking
let's do it. Let's do it,
Kennedy
Adam.
Center
We'll do the
shit.
weights. This is what we used to do at IBM. Go like
Yeah,
this.
exactly. Yeah, do the way.
Six
Yeah.
trillion. Okay, we do 6 trillion. 2 billion. Wait, let's try it again. 6 trillion being spent by the president to endear himself to a population that in a few months will be voting for him, hopefully.
It's
Or two
it's
billion, all the way down here, so you can
unreal.
barely see it. It's right there. 2 billion for a bunch of cellists and a viola dude who just got fired because the orchestra just got fired at the Kennedy Center, and so did the
Yeah.
popcorn vendor. They don't have popcorn. It's usually an $8 Hershey bar. Hershey. Yeah, exactly.
The point is, they had a laundry list of things they wanted, right? And so the Republicans agreed to those $2 billion roughly. Historical Museum Association, Kennedy Center Museum, another one, National Arts or whatever. I don't even fucking know. Doesn't matter. And guess what? Why do they do that? It's because it stuck out like a sore thumb, right? And the media, who didn't want to talk about it, but the right wing media went after it right away, put it out on social media right away. This has nothing to do. Hannity's talking about it, Tucker Carlson. It gave us an excuse to talk about something where we didn't absolutely not only take their lunch, punch them in the face, but potentially snap their bra while we were doing it. And it gave us something to talk about, except for the fact that what we did to them. We'll rebuild the economy, and the Democrats will pay for it. Silog, that's exactly what I am saying. Exactly what I'm saying. And it's like Tyson in the early days. Remember, I mean, you knock a guy out so fast. Sometimes he would stand there and look down. Most of the time, he just walked away because it was like, easy money in the pocket. Yeah, it's not becoming to the American people for Trump to just stand over Pelosi and just mock her ruthlessly. Everything that she's done to him, and I mean from everything from day one on, he has taken more from her in one bill called the CARES Act than she could ever hope to do to him. Ever. It was partially because of the impeachment and how bad that failure was, partially because there was a lot of nervous Democrats that are like, wait a minute, I'm not getting in the way of this fucking bill. And then it was partially the fact that she made a bad decision with her staff to introduce all kinds of crazy shit to slow the process up. And then everybody started using that bill all over Twitter, and she just got ruined. She got wrecked. And the only thing they got out of it was a couple of bullshit for museums and and all that crap, the Kennedy Center. And then other people came along and said, well, idiots, assholes in Congress, like Matt Gaetz and, dumbasses who say, well, we should have never given $350 million to refugees and migrants. But you fucking moron. That's a Department of State fucking mandatory expenditure fucking line item program. We put the money in. That's not going anywhere into Mexico or, Venezuela or Costa Rica or any bullshit. That stuff is out in like outside of Yemen and outside of freaking, Jordan, and trying to keep people from, Kurds from going into Turkey and starting a fucking war. Basically, it's $350 million check that you just wrote to Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo administers every dime of that $350 million because it's under a controlling line item. And if you don't know what a controlling line item is, you've never worked in business or government, and that means you can't spend it outside of its controlling ME, meaning whatever it's designed for, It's designed for. So he doesn't have to spend that money. And the other term people could probably learn to live with or probably study is we have another term that I really liked when I was in government, and they're called unencumbered funds. You know what unencumbered funds are? You're a business guy, you do. A lot of people in here do. Unencumbered funds are money not spent in that fiscal year. They can be carried over in that particular line item. Now, why would we want 350 million for migrant, refugee, whatever programs that is administered by a bureau in the Department of State? Why would we want all this other money in the bill that people say we didn't need? It's because next time we go for a spending bill, we don't have to ask for that money. It's unencumbered funds that are just sitting there. There's a shitload. This is like a spending bill that we got through without having to give up anything. And the fact that sequestration, which is still in effect from the Obama years, 10% of everything goes both ways. Sequestration was like, okay, if you're going to do 10% military expenditures, you, the Republicans said you have to cut SNAP or food stamps or something 10%. We didn't apply it. So our military expenditures went hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And SNAP got like a tiny little food stamp increase, which I don't have a problem with because people might go hungry for a couple of weeks and I want them to have food. This bill dies. It ends. It has a sunset provision. Do people understand that? We just kind of fucking hijacked the bus, man. We hijacked the bus for as long as this shit show lasts or until we're out of office, which hopefully doesn't happen. But for the most part, this thing, 90% of it, none of it lasts beyond this year.
Yeah, and people
It's
always are
fascinating.
talking about everyone is an asshole, but I trust Trump. Well, who's the biggest beneficiary of that bill? It's Trump. He now has the carte blanche to run the economy without any encumbrance for as long as he's in office, pretty much. So, guys, uh, I just don't. I mean, look, I understand that a lot of what's going on it smells fishy. I get that, but who cares? I mean, we are poised now to get Trump reelected and replace that piece of human trash, Ruth Bader Meinhof Ginsburg. That's all I'm thinking about. And whatever it takes to get Trump another 4 years, whatever it is, I will support it. I don't care. I've spent the last 20 years, 30 years looking at the leftists and how they do things and praying that I can become the mirror image of whatever they are. And I'm encouraging all of you to do the same. You know, if it means keeping our mouth shut and letting Trump ride this train, if he wants to ride it down coronavirus, whatever, if that's going to get him reelected, then listen, best to keep your mouth shut. Let's get reelected. And then if there's a witch hunt to be had in February or March of 2021, I will be with you with the little people with the pitchforks and the torches, and then we'll chase Frankenstein. He'll jump in the well or whatever. But for right now, you'd be a fool. You would be a fool to keep pecking away at what I think is working for the president right now. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah,
And
he's taking the media head on, man. I mean, he's just like he's not letting one question go that he can't expose them for just sheer hostility and disinterest in the Americans' welfare in general, and they're still trying to get their minds around because they want to expose all this spending and stuff like it, but their bosses are saying he should be doing more,
right,
not realizing the liquidity that we have unexpended is just beyond measure.
they've
You're
boxed
talking
themselves
about
in.
multiple fiscal years.
They've boxed themselves in. I mean, they're the ones always spend. There's no problem in the world that throwing American taxpayer money isn't the solution. And now Trump has loaded up. He's
But
loaded
why did they
everything, and they're
they
complaining.
gave that Democrat FDR wet dream spending solution, they gave it to their number one enemy.
Yeah.
They gave it to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is wielding more power right now, financially speaking, than any president since FDR
Hmm.
post 1930. And I can tell you, the power that he has to administer this program in a way that navigates it carefully enough that doesn't terribly upset the budget hawks on the right. Which, if you're a budget hawk on the right, and right now you're feeling like you have the audacity to go after Trump, good luck. You're going to be ostracized, and hope it's not an election year for you, because you're done.
But
And what are
that's
they
what
going to
I'm
do on the
saying.
left?
I am one of those right wing, small R Republic budget hawks, but I also can see clearly at my age and going through all of these different elections, none of it matters to me. Nothing matters. The only thing that matters is we get another 4 years and turn that
Mm-hmm.
Supreme Court 6-3, or even, can I even dream, 7-2. I don't care if
Mm-hmm.
we have to spend $10 trillion to get that. That is the only thing that matters, because in 2 or 3 years, no one will remember those 4 or 5, $6 trillion. It will be gone into the memory hole, but a fucked up libtard Supreme Court will destroy what little is left of the original republic as founded by our founders. We have
Yeah,
to
it
focus on
just,
what's important.
it's just another point that Republicans have been dancing around for a lot of years, and I feel like dispelling some of this notion that if you came up through the generation of reading William F. Buckley, as you and I both did, and if you came up, you know, kind of through this Reagan economics period where you've got to produce more than you're taking out of your economy and that type of thing. It's perfectly natural to assume that deficits and debts are potentially really dangerous to the country. And actually, before globalization, that might have been a point
Mm.
of contention. But now the backlash of full globalization is that we are in fact still on top, and by far, and we control more than they ever thought we would. Never 25 years ago, Glenn, did they assume that we would. They thought they had us by the petrodollar balls.
They were
Okay,
wrong.
meaning it was all about fuel, and the dollar would only remain the top currency in the world for trade if we could hold this tenuous OPEC agreement on oil. And then what did we do? We flipped the coin on that bitch, didn't we? Now we're the number one producer in the world. We don't even know what to do with it. We can't store it. We don't know where the hell go. We're burning it off. So this gave an opportunity for the kingdom, as they call themselves, and Putin to try to drive out our big energy guns from the shale industry and the Bakken oil and all the other things. And here's the problem with that: they've been killing themselves doing it. And Trump just authorized himself more money than both their countries combined
For
could
20
possibly
years.
do
I know.
in
They
two
got, yeah,
years.
they got nothing. They
They
got
get nothing.
nothing.
And if we want, we can tear up the shit out of any barrel that goes anywhere we don't want from OPEC. And they are kind of screwed. So, as Tim mentioned earlier, he's probably gone. The deal is a 10 to 15% cut. We think we're going to get that. So if you really like this 95-cent gas, you're not living in PA, but go out and fill up, because I think it's going to, speculators will jump that price up 15 cents right away. But that's going to put some giddy up back in our collateral, because this is what people don't understand about the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is contingent upon profitability, one, but also not just profitability, collateralized or securitized assets. That's what makes us a profitable nation. And we have so many assets, not only government owned, but non government owned, that you have to invest with us. Where are you going to make money elsewhere? Europe, give me a break. China, hanging on by a thread. We're holding all the cards. And in some ways, this virus has highlighted the fact that you can't compete with us. You cannot compete with us.
Nope.
It's never going to happen. Doesn't matter if we lose twice as many people as you do. It's not going to happen. And I'll tell you this much. When do you when you start beating your chest about it, it sounds cool, but people want to know the X's and O's about it. But in order to do that, it's almost like lifting the magician's cape or the hat with the rabbit, because now you start to arm our progressive opponents with actual information. And I wasn't lying when I put down the tweet a while ago. My pinned tweet before this last one was still my photo at the top of my profile on Twitter. Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump have settled into some kind of odd, uneasy, but yet probably the most effective relationship between a Senate Majority Leader and a president that I don't know. I maybe ever in modern memory. It's just fascinating what they've been able to do, considering it's only a 53-47, and you got Mitt Romney over there and Rand Paul over there to come out of that fucking chamber with a 96-0 vote. It's basically empowering the president to ensure the fact that he will have the money to do whatever he needs to ensure his reelection. That to me is, but we had him where we wanted him. What were they going to do? Argue with us?
Hey,
did you see? This is a new headline that came out tonight. Donald Trump's talking about a $2 trillion phase 4, and Pelosi saying one.
right.
One. When have you ever in your life heard of the Republicans asking for $1 trillion
because she
more?
realizes whatever money is authorized is going to go directly as some kind of I hate using the word bribe because it sounds bad, but let's just put it this way. Trump has demonstrated to me that if necessary, he's willing to send out another round of checks in September. He's shown me he's got what it takes. If necessary, he's going to find a way.
Would that be good timing, Glenn, do you think? Politically? Do you think that might
Absolutely
be
not, because that would be a misuse of his. But I'm sure because of the devastating effects of this coronavirus epidemic, global pandemic, and Tony Fauci's constant bleeding and tweeting on these things, it may become necessary in late August, early September, to lay another $2,000 per individual. There'll be plenty of money left over to do it. You know it, Gingrich. There's plenty. There's more money at his disposal now than any president has had during my lifetime to do whatever
What's
the fuck
the limitation?
he wants. And guess what?
It's the imagination.
What I'm saying.
That's it.
What I'm saying is, how many times during the Obama years did we just get riled up? They're talking about never let a crisis go to waste, and all these other type of statements. Remember what Eric Holder was saying about guns? We've got to delegitimize them. We've got to brainwash people against them using the media. Finally, I'm in my 50s now. I'm no longer a young man, but I'm telling you, I'm seeing my dream of when 1983 and 1984, I was wondering, how come we never play the game like that? How come we're always the guys going, well, that would be wrong to do? I'm like, no, it's not. Winning is never wrong. It's never wrong. And now we finally have a president who's lit a fire under the ass of people like Mitch McConnell, who now realizes, hey, I can win. That's a little bit of a Jimmy Cagney, Jimmy Stewart, but that's how I see Mitch McConnell, kind of a Jimmy Stewart character. That we could win too, Mr. President. I'm gonna come out of my shell and start winning with you. We'll they made some deal. Good for them. There's more money on the table. Everyone gets to eat. And he's going to buy a re-election, and I couldn't be happier about it. And you tell your political friends, or don't say these things. Say, look, people are enthusiastic about it. We are finally playing the game the Democrats have been playing on us.
I think I know now why they were telling me that, Glenn, is because they think they can get yet another bite of this apple. And they might be right.
Obviously $1 billion, because if Nancy wants... but really, a trillion. What's another trillion when you already got 6? I mean, really, how much money do you need to? We used to call that spreading around money. Do they still call that in DC, spreading around money?
Spreading around money is, it's a general term for elections where we give it out. We give that stuff on the street to get people out and things like that.
But this is the most insane. This this is like the highest level you can attain on the spreading around money
Yeah.
process. I mean, $6 trillion. Holy shit! You can give every American who filed a tax return $1,200, and what? How much money is that, Adam? How much is that?
It's a lot.
$750 billion, a trillion, maybe.
I'm looking some stuff up here just so we can put it in perspective.
Yeah. Pyramid Seven says it's strip club money. Walking around money. That's it, Alex. Yeah. Walking around money. Kicking around money. Right. By the way, Newegg.com is now selling hand sanitizer. Two 60 millimeter little pump hand sanitizers for $15.
Oh yeah? Whoa, geez.
So if you're too lazy to make your own hand sanitizer with aloe vera and vodka, you can go to newegg.com and literally pay through your ass for two. Emo, you running low on hand sanitizer? Go to Newegg. I don't get any money from it, but I just noticed that today when I was buying a cable. I was like, oh, look at that. Look at Everclear and aloe. Tasty. Actually, it sounds like a good college drink, right? You know, Everclear and aloe. So what does it mean, Adam? What if we're giving everyone $1,200 that filed a tax return? How much does that equate to out of the 6 trillion?
Well, I first want to let people know that private wealth alone, not even getting into the government side of this whole thing, and this is 2019 data, private. This is what they call purchasing power too. When you add it all into the mix of people saying that China's going to overcome America, blah 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 blah. Number one is the United States, $61 trillion in private wealth. Number
Hello.
two is China at 23.6. So
And
it's
by the way,
not even half.
how much of that 22 trillion is contingent on our country forking over bread?
Wealth off of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're exactly right. I mean, now granted, now some of our 60 is wealth off of them as well.
Yeah,
But
so I'm thinking when all is said and done, we might be at 50 and they might be at 10 or 12. They suck. They suck. I hate them. I hate those Chi-Com bastards. Ever since that smelly fucking anti-war hippie tried to make me buy a Mao's Little Red Book in 75, 76. You ever try to read that garbage? Was that one of the things they made you read in your classes, Mao's Little Red Book?
no.
Mm. Revolution is at the barrel of a gun. That was his big. That was the big pull quote for Mao. Nationalize China debt, break their backs. Yes, exactly. So Colin Santucci thinks the $1,200 for all the people is like $500 billion. He thinks is what it equates to. I think it's raining.
No. The total, because the families are
Double that.
2,400.
Yeah.
You got 2 kids, you get 3,400.
What is it, like more like a trillion and a half, maybe? Something like that. So after this
At
round,
that point, like you said, what does it matter?
well, what does it matter? Because we got another 5 trillion ready to go. Well, I just think this is This is the greatest time to be a right of center voter, and I just don't understand why people are so doom and gloom. I don't understand it. It makes me.
I'm gonna read a couple things for
Yes.
people here. I'm gonna read the total GDP for 2017 from the country of France, which is top 10 out of 196 countries. Their total GDP for the year is 2.6 trillion, otherwise known as almost as much as our initial amount without getting into the Fed's 4 trillion.
That was
So
the first.
that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Let's go to Australia, which is 20th out of 196 countries. 2017 GDP of 1.1 trillion. Trump could have an extended bowel movement during this period and spend more than what Australia pulled in for the entire year of 2017. Just in that time, on a cell phone, on the golden shitter, press a button, 1.1 trillion out the door. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, 15th out of 196 countries. Their GDP, 1.6 trillion. Again, Trump could do both. Just to mock.
That's basically Rhode Island, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
maybe that's an exaggeration. Not Rhode Island, but perhaps
Germany.
Ohio.
I think we can all accept Germany's been considered the one that keeps Europe abreast of their disastrous stockpile of debt, that the EU's trying to keep afloat, with Greece and Spain and Italy and all that shit.
They keep those trains running on time, that's for sure.
Goddamn, you just don't know who's on them or where they're going, but the trains are.
Don't ask those questions. Just be amazed.
Don't ask those questions. Yeah. But their 2017 GDP was 3.8 trillion, which is in the top 5, which is great. But it's almost roughly, if you consider the extra couple $100 billion we're already looking at, it's roughly half of what we've authorized to handle a virus.
Beautiful.
Are people following me here? The entire GDP of Germany, the crucible in the EU, we have authorized more than 2 trillion more to handle this economic situation that we're going through right now than they make in an entire freaking year. I'm not going to go. I mean, I'm not going to repeat myself a lot, but I'm going to go back and look at some other states here. We are second, they say, in the 2017, which is 17.7 trillion GDP in 2017. Now, granted, that went up in 18, so way up in 18 and 19. So, but according to this old data, it's probably more like 19 trillion, whatever. 6 of which is now available in the palm of the hand of Donald Trump. Is that not? I mean, I hope people are at least a little bit fascinated by some of this stuff. Maybe they're not. I don't know.
I think people are enjoying this. By the way, we received a donation from Rebecca, and we received a donation from Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. And there was one more, I think. Walt also made a donation. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I think, look, I think I'm looking at the comments on Periscope mainly. If you are a Periscope person who watch a lot of Periscopes, I don't think you're going to get the importance of what has been done. All I'm hearing, my wife is a good barometer of these things. So whatever my wife is thinking generally is what the average Trump voter is thinking. And she's always thinking that we're losing, that we've been outsmarted, that the Dems are just evil and they're winning and there's nothing, how are we going to win? And Fauci is such a bastard. And I'm just trying to, I'm glad that we're doing this. People understand that within, 6 weeks, no one will remember who Tony Fauci was, not even his wife. But that $6 trillion will still be making Donald Trump smile every morning when he wakes up. And no matter what, think of it this way. What is the Democratic candidate for president going to do when our president can push a button and release another $500 billion into the economy in any way he wants?
Maybe if I put it this way, people a little bit, they'll understand. China has a population of roughly 1.43, 1.5 billion people. Okay. According to the IMF, last year, their total GDP was 14.2 trillion. Not too shabby, except per capita, you know what that is? And essentially what I mean is, how much does a Chinese citizen own of the country's wealth?
50 cents.
Less than $8,000 per person.
That's it?
So let's look at the United States.
8K.
The United States has a population roughly 330 million. Our IMF rated GDP last year, $21.34 trillion. Now our per capita is well over 56,000 per person. There's nothing that you can do, and people are still trying to figure out this debt ratio, right? I mean, what does the debt mean? Oh my God, my kids are going to owe $69,000 per household, whatever. But your assets in America are 4, 5, 6, 7 times more than that. So you're actually, if you liquidated your entire country for some reason, you would be owed a shitload of money by your government, by everything that you put into it. So there is no such thing as your children paying off deficits and debts. It doesn't work that way. Our debts are bought in the form of treasuries, bonds, all the time by us, but a lot by foreign countries. They invest in our debt. You know why? Because it's the top bond rated debt, basically, of a big country in the world. And we can't default. It's virtually impossible for us to default. And if we decided maybe we want to default on a loan to somebody like Maduro in Venezuela, Duterte in the Philippines for some reason, we do it. Now, we don't really, but we could. And the only way they could ever collect off the United States of America would be to go to war with us. I wish you good fortune if you think you can defeat us. Your economic volume, it's an axiom I've said, and I'll say it again, which has been part of capitalism since capitalism was born. Your military volume is only as good as your economic volume, and your economic volume is only as good as your military volume. You collect debts by the ability to do so at all costs, including militarily, and you prevent others from collecting debts that you don't want to pay militarily. You can't outspend it. Nobody. People talk about China spending so much money on their military. It's peanuts compared to what we do since Trump came into office. What Trump is doing is building this massive insurance policy that we could never fail. We could never default, even if we cratered, even if the so-called Yellowstone volcano went. You can't. You just can't. The world requires us to play ball. And if we're not playing ball, they all collapse. And you look at a world incident like this, where 182 countries are infected by a pandemic, who do you think is going to come out on top of this game? They're going to invest in us like nothing else. Nobody's business. At the same time, we're bringing back manufacturing supply chains back to our home. And if you think prices are going to go up in an election year, you're wrong, because we're going to freaking subsidize it. And we're going to win another 4 years because, as you said, there's nothing more important than winning another 4 years. Nothing. There's no amount of money. We will spend whatever. And if the Democrats are dumb enough to sign off on it, all the better.
Which they already were. So thank you, dumbasses.
So let's go back for another $2 trillion.
Let's
and
go
George
back
Will,
for
you can go sit on a
5.
cactus.
Let's go after 5. Let them give us 2. And we can use that to finish off Nancy Pelosi politically. Not that she needs much help in that department, but you never know. It's always good to have a little extra cash.
That's why I like the infrastructure bill, man. I like the infrastructure bill because now we're starting to dig into the private unions. Now we're starting to put people back to work. Contractors, one thing. Big business, cement, asphalt, steel, carpenters, all these guys are going back to work. Private unions, public unions, everybody's starting to get a little bit of their hands in the pie. Why would you vote this guy out? Why the fuck? My God. This guy's rebuilding infrastructure. The dollar's staying down. Why is the dollar staying down? Well, because where's the inflationary property going to happen? We're putting our currency into our own system the way China's been doing for 20 fucking years. There ain't going to be any inflationary properties involved. Because we're bringing manufacturing back here, things are going to cost a little bit more. We're going to pay a little bit more. It's going to keep inflation down. But number one, we're still producing more oil and gas than anybody else in the world. So as that starts to rise back up again, we're going to lower it. We are in the catbird seat, man. Silog, make Jeff Sessions pay for it. I'll tell you what, we're going to make Jeff Sessions pay for all of his sins.
Yes, we will.
When 97 days, 20 hours, 4 minutes from now, he loses.
Big time loses, too. Big time loser. Keebler Elf, Jeff Sessions.
I know these are dark times. Staying at home this much drives people crazy, but you know, what drives me crazy is watching all this shit and not seeing people tell the truth. John Roberts, I'm going to assume this is not the Fox reporter. This is our good friend, John Roberts, who donates, I think, on both sides of this thing. I appreciate your support, John.
I appreciate your suicidal impulse to donate to us while trying to maintain good relationships with the media. I salute you, sir. You're my by the way, you're my favorite media person that's friends with Adam, because the other ones, I tend to have to drive around Atlanta and pick them up and carry them to their room.
That's Alpharetta to you.
And have to prevent them from being arrested by police officers at 2 a.m. because they can't stand properly. But they somehow manage to be able to urinate on cars. How does that work? Don't know.
I don't know. He's got a better handle on all this shit than my good friend Richard. I'm really disturbed that Richard can't get his mind around all this stuff, and I'm getting a lot of messages from people, and I just think it's unfortunate. I guess it's just you get a little myopic when you're a pollster and you just keep looking at what's going on at the immediate time. But you've got to be, you got to be thinking a little bit down the road here. I mean, we are in the first week of April, and I'm just, I'm kind of flummoxed by the whole thing.
Well,
and maybe there are a lot of people that didn't hear.
We've got to give people some room, because there's different things going on at the same time, right? My position is, no matter what, the most important thing is getting Trump reelected. Period. Nothing else really matters. I don't care. I really don't care. Anything that's going on, you can say, but what about Fauci? Who cares about Fauci? What about Bill Gates? Don't care about Bill Gates. I do care very much about Donald Trump having all the ammunition necessary to eviscerate his enemies and win 4 more years. That's all I care about. And I think that Richard Barris, within 4 to 6 weeks, is going to be back on the train caring about that. So there's no point in obsessing over whatever he's doing now. Within 5 or 6 weeks, he'll be back doing what he does. Hopefully,
He's too smart not to. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
but we want him out there showing us that all of these travails we're going through are paying off, and that Trump is headed toward a reelection. And all of it will be worth it. Because, guys, 2 years from now, no one will remember anything about coronavirus or the $6 trillion or any of this horse shit. All you'll remember is, man, we won. And that's all you should remember. and that's all I care about. I don't care about
Yeah, I think
anything else anymore.
there's a niche audience, and we've noticed this with everything since the McMaster is going to start a war in Syria crowd. We know what Cernovich is going to do. We know what
Yeah, fuck him. I
Richard
blocked him.
Barnes is
He's
going to do.
blocked, so I don't care anymore about Cernovich. He's done.
It's
Right?
absolutely an absence of knowledge. So it's quite impossible to inform your decision on how to share with anyone in a public forum what's going on if you don't have any knowledge. And of course, it's really hard to have knowledge if there's no incremental level of learning and experience that informs your decision. So I feel badly for some of these people that are getting misled, but we're here, we're doing what we can. And some people might say, hey, check out this podcast or whatever and learn something. But what I'm telling you is the extraordinary amount of wealth this country has produced over the last 3 years is not going to waste. Okay. And I think that's the consternation that most people are going through. I can't believe we killed this economy. Listen, you can't do that. That'd be like killing a grizzly with a 22. All right.
Well,
Even
look, I
if you
mean,
groove the
these
skull.
people, they've thrown out their markers that we're going into a depression. They're going to be rationing. And when in 4 to 6 weeks, neither of those things have happened, and we're looking good in the polls, I would assume they're going to get back on the train and shut up. And that's what you're going to do. That's what I'm doing. See, and I'm smarter than all of them because I have more of an axe to grind than any of these motherfuckers. But I've gotten on the train. I'm not going to say anything anymore. I don't care. All
Well,
that
because
matters is the re-election of Donald Trump. And if
you
he
got
has
old
to go
enough to
out there,
realize
yeah, well, I've
it's not
lost.
about
I've
winning on
watched us
style
lose.
points.
I've watched us lose
Yes,
for
exactly.
40
Don't
plus
try to
fucking
win.
years, and I'm
Don't
tired of
try to
it.
win on style points. Just don't
No,
do it.
there is no
Style
style.
points don't
If you looked at the
count. They
Democrats,
don't count.
they have no style, but they win. And they win because they hang together. They know that they're going to hang together one way or the other. So they hang
Mhm.
together. Even when their leaders say the most insane, insipidly stupid things, they will go like lemmings down that cliff. That is not stupid. Like, watch them tell you that Joe Biden is a smart guy. Watch them. And they mean it. They're passionate, even though they know he's insane and probably some kind of mental patient. They're gonna go to the gallows singing the praises of these losers. And all I'm saying, guys, is everything is on the table this November. It's time we take a page from their book. We should hang together, hang tough, shut the fuck up. We have all of to 2021, 22, 23 to attack all of the LARPers and all this bullshit, but it doesn't matter now. The president is riding high this coronavirus thing. So it's time to shut up. We should support it. Coronavirus is going to kill you. It's going to kill me and Adam. We're practically dead men walking, but the president is the only thing standing in the way. He's saving the country. And with that $6 trillion, I hope that the few that don't see that will enjoy the transfer payments. As the LCD sound system says, take your payments from the nation. That's it. I'm not even taking my payments, and I'm happy for them. I want them to double the payments, but probably in August would be a good time. Maybe September if you can get away with it. Would
Yeah,
be
I'm
fantastic.
okay with that too. It's just
Make it 3,000 next time. Let him go. Let him
yeah,
take limousines.
I have yet to hear anybody explain to me, and mostly because they can't. A lot of other countries, and I want to say 95% of the world's countries, are kind of tucked into one type of regional agreement or real tight labor market and supply chain issues where they have constraints where they can't do what they want to do without or with impunity, whatever. America, we're not that. And we just happen to have built up this entire war chest over the last 3 years. And if you are so short-sighted that you think that we just stopped it like that. Like you could stop that kind of wealth accumulation, right? You could stop that kind of wealth accumulation because your local restaurants closed, because your movie theaters are closed, because you can't have a concert, or wait a minute, the Hollywood studios had to stop filming. Wait, that doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And by the way, most of our essential industries that are up and running in most states, which is up to the governors, by the way, are still producing everything. My brother goes to work every day, and he's in flour mill. And my sister-in-law, of course, works for Hershey Med, in charge of a whole wing for oncology. She's at work every day. My brother-in-law is a contractor. He got a two-man team. He's at work every day. I mean, listen, Obi's still working almost every day if he's got a job.
At least for this week.
This is not shutting down every part of the economy, and it'll start back up pretty quickly. And even if we don't, what you're not hearing on the news is, oh, by the way, we've got a $6 trillion deposit that you'll be okay, that you're not going to lose it. We'll make you whole.
Right.
And why would we do that? Why would we put $6 trillion in this? Why would we put better than a quarter of our total GDP up for the year for this? Because we know once everything's up and running, consumerism and retail and everything is driving the industry, we're going right back to where we were before. It's not a bad investment. How the hell what are you going to do? Say, well, 3 years it paid off like gangbusters, but then a virus came along and fuck it, done. Listen, not only are we going to have a vaccine by November 1st, we're going to have everything else that you could possibly ever imagine that would preempt any desire or need to fear a second wave of a pandemic. It's not going to happen. We have so much money invested in this shit. And the Democrats are unwillingly going to have to look at the mirror and say, do we want to try to hold the House and maybe win the presidency if things break our way? Or do we want to just risk getting steamrolled by throwing a bunch of green energy, Green Deal shit into a bill that might come next month? The answer is we're going to win.
Yes.
And the concessions that we make are going to be strategic so that we can isolate them and promote them through right-wing media and Twitter to show how out of touch with the rest of America the Democrats are. Boom, helps you in Wisconsin, helps you in Michigan, helps you in Ohio, helps you in Iowa, helps you in North Carolina, helps you in Pennsylvania. We have everything right there on the platter for us. So for people that are just flipping out, I mean, do I have to say these things? Tonight I decided I do.
You must.
And
because
people,
that's the only thing that differentiates us from all these other crazy channels is that the truth in this case is actually more exciting than all the gaslighting. The truth is actually super fantastic, and the gaslighting is terribly boring and frustrating and depressing. So I'm trying to tell, this is why I was trying to egg you on into doing this, because guess what? I think this is the winning that we were hoping for in November of 2016. This is it. We've hit that pay dirt. The libs know it. They're freaking out. The Dems, remember our conversation, Adam? It's like, where are the Democrats' voice? They don't have one. They shot their load with impeachment. Now the president's sitting on $6 trillion. And who do they got? Joe Biden in some basement. I don't know what state he's in. He's in a fucking basement yelling at his grandkids, What the fuck is that? What is that? It's nothing.
I don't know.
It's a big nothing.
I don't know. I'm just not used to having my hair brushed or anything, so I'm flipping out here. I just want to go back to my wild caveman.
Well, what the old joke that in the late 70s, comedians, one comedian on the Tonight Show said, "We got to bomb Iran into the Stone Age. We got to bomb him in the Stone Age." That was Rodriguez. We got to bomb to the Stone Age. That'll set him back like.
Oh yeah.
2 weeks.
He used to be funny.
Yeah, well, 30 years or 40 years ago. He said, that'll set him back 2 weeks, right? So you're going to be a stone, you're going to be a caveman. That'll probably, you will de-evolve, what, a month to be a caveman?
I
That's,
love that. I love that. That's a great joke by Paulie Rodriguez. Funny guy.
yes. Well, I remember it. Listen, how many jokes do you remember from The Tonight Show in 1979? I bet none. But I laughed so hard when he said that. I remembered it all these years later. Yeah, he was pretty good
Yeah, I
before
watch
the alcohol got him.
occasionally when I can't sleep, I get on the stuff what I call them the sub channels, the sub, when you get into the above the regular networks where it's like for free kind of shit. I watch a lot of All in the Family. I just have to. I watch occasional Jeffersons, and it's just a total different time and era. And I wish we could just have a little bit of a breath of fresh air in what's going on right now in America. It's got a lot of people trapped inside, and the people that you're with are like-minded people, and it's getting tougher and tougher. And I think that Netflix is kind of a big deal. And I just finished Tiger King last night. I agree, it's fascinating. If you haven't watched it yet, you absolutely have to watch Tiger King. The third season of Ozark is out. Fantastic show on network or Netflix. And if you haven't really, just to wrap up this show, if you haven't ever given a chance to the original stuff that made Netflix pretty popular, there's Mindhunter. It's a great show. It's 2 seasons. But Making of a Murderer is 2 seasons. I think it's well worth the watch. And then, of course, there's another real life murder slash accident documentary called The Staircase. There are a lot of things worth watching on Netflix, and Amazon is considerably less. But we don't have that outlet anymore. Oh my gosh. Is she on a diet? I guess it was the black was slenderizing for her because like 15, 16. Yeah, there's definitely girth there. Have you noticed that? Well, you wouldn't because
I
but
put
my
myself
cat,
on mute. I was saying everyone has recognizing the girth of my cat, so
yeah,
it's a big deal,
m- my
right?
cat has been affected a lot by having everybody around all the time, and routine has been fucked up, and she's definitely just not happy with everything that's going around. I agree with you, Tweety Bird. Sebastian Maniscalco, however you pronounce it, I've watched every single one of his. Certainly, if you have not watched Jim Gaffigan, watch every single one of his. I wouldn't say every single one of geez, what's his name? Uh, Dave Chappelle's is awesome, but the last one, the last one that Netflix hates and won't promote, you got to go find it. Is absolutely one of the best comedies I've ever seen. We've talked about that 1,000 times. Norm Macdonald's always good. Follow Norm Macdonald on Twitter. The Hunt is good. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Again, it's we've been on Jesus 3 hours now, so we're gonna jump off because we're considering doing Thursdays during this time period
Yes.
because there's a lot going on. So we don't want to exhaust anyone or ourselves. But Thursdays, 10 o'clock in that vicinity is where we're shooting on. Obi will have vacation now. Well, I hope so. Obi deserves a vacation.
He does.
We will
A paid one at that. You know.
paid vacation, indeed, indeed. So we appreciate everybody donating and or contributing. I don't know what the word is for.
Donating. That's what it is.
Yeah, it makes it sound like this is a philanthropic mission when it's really
Well, we
More
like
goes
that. I
into it than
like
you
the
think.
idea that we can hide behind the facade of philanthropy when, in fact, send your money now. Send us all your money.
Yeah.
I need it all. I need all your money.
Well,
So,
let's not take it to pragmatic levels, but yeah,
well, if I was taking it to pragmatic levels, I would invoke the devil, and you're going to go to hell if you don't get. I don't know, you're not going to go to hell. Your life will be great if you don't donate to us, but you should open your
yeah.
wallet and send it now. Ooh.
I think we pulled the wool off a little bit tonight, and I'm going to continue to do this Saturday, not only Thursday but Saturday. I'm just tired of it now, and people need to see that is just an enormous amount of power. And I know that it's not a popular talking point on any news network because, frankly, it's rubbing salt into the wound of what we were able to do.
Right.
So, but if you disagree with me, go find yourself somewhere an economist or historian or somebody who is learned in the U.S. economy at all, and they won't argue with the fact that this is unprecedented, literally unprecedented, and the Democrats made a major error in an election year, freeing up $6 trillion at date. Could be more, probably will be. Is just it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And so no matter what the Supreme Court does with the Obamacare issue from the Fifth Circuit, we will backfill all of it. Like anybody who has any illness, we'll just like pay all their medical bills.
Yeah,
What we're going to do is something that Bernie would sound like he's going to do, and it's okay because it's just we have to win. And
that's
once we
it.
win, forget about it. We're changing this country permanently through the judiciary system and a few more laws that we need situated. But trust me, the way we're sitting in the catbird seat right now,
Who knows? We might actually get national carry. Anything's possible, right?
that you know what I'm saying, not too much is going to be possible, except judges if we keep the Senate in the second term, because I think by that time, I think that the gig will be up. But I just want to get there, man. I just want to get through it. Yeah. So we're in a good spot. See how it happens. I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody donated, and 10 o'clock, 10-ish Thursday night. Leave it to Glenn to sign off. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. I want to, before we end this thing, I want to thank the following. I want to thank Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, for your donation at magacoalition.com/donate. I want to thank Bud, also known as Gordon. Thank you. You are very generous to us, and I appreciate that. And finally, I would like to thank Frida, long time viewer and supporter. Frida, the very first week I joined the MAGA Coalition, my job was to, I believe, send Frida a t-shirt, which I did. So thank you, and we will be back Thursday around 10 o'clock. Hopefully, we'll start in a more timely manner. Thank you for hanging in with us, and I will see you guys Thursday. Have a good one.